you sit by yourself, you
All right, you will be more by sitting in the front, and it's interactive talk.
Interactive is not mean. I don't do anything awful. There's no quiz at the end.
Okay, sit in the first 3 rows. Okay.
When I did this type of thing for the scout troops, if I diluted version, I brought them here. The other reason it's a good idea to sit closer to me, someday if you hit me up for money, it's better if I
Exactly, the first one. Yeah.
Things I love about G, she always steps up and she always asks for what she wants. No shy here. No, it's good. Like, you know how many people are like this?
There's no time.
There's no time.
There's no time.
Somebody else will ask as money's all gone before you ask.
It's true.
I asked for dinner from Can I have that? I think it's a full on.
I also
I probably got the. I asked iMac. But they have like, can you take it in the barometer with you? They're like, well, no, can I have it?
That's good. That's
as well. I don't know. Go to my pockets and yep, it's 3:30.
Or we'll come wait for a couple of minutes. Yeah, I can introduce you. I think if more people want to come, I'll wait for a few more minutes.
Okay. As one who's often late, I have a lot of patience. I'm actually proud of that. And when I have to like go ask investors for money, I realize that awful thing about myself. So I get places 30 minutes early and scope out where I have to go, and then I work so I can be right on time. It's very misleading.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jie Qiao. I'm associate professor at imaging science. But today, I'm very pleased to introduce our special speaker, Dr. Sujatha Ramanujan. And she is a PhD by training from electrical engineering, actually in the ultra-fast optics area, the same area where I am in. And on top of that, she is a serial entrepreneur. She has been a lead developer and helped the growth of 3 startup companies in the area of clinical devices, electronic devices, and nanoplastic materials. Very interdisciplinary. Now she's heading up the Lumerate venture funding program for NextCorp. It is the world's largest startup accelerator for optics, photonics, and imaging. So the only place intersecting all 3 places. And I think some of our alumni company from imaging science, is it Positive Science?
Positive Science?
Has been founded by Luminate. And the other imaging science graduate panel, and who recently sold Flux Data, also had a close interaction with Luminate. So with her background, she's going to talk about the 4 elements of building a successful new venture: team, market, advanced advantages and value proposition. So with this, I'd like to open the entrepreneurship workshop series in science, engineering, and technology. So this is a workshop series I'm organizing from this semester, and it will expand into the fall semester. And the goal is to bring the entrepreneurial faculty, students, Rochester community, and sponsors like Greg. Thank you for coming. He leads the venture fund for RIT, and also RIT Career Service, Jim. So he wants to bring jobs from the local Rochester community to our students. And in the fall, we're going to launch a one-credit course, Scientists as Entrepreneurs. So all the students, especially second year, when you finish your qualifying exam, you're welcome to take it. And this is also will be across college level, collaborating with engineering. So it's open to the whole RIT community. The two events coming up, March 25th, we're going to have a college-wide speaker. His name is Jim Wyant. He is the founding dean of College of Optical Sciences, University of Arizona. He successfully founded two companies, 4D, if you work in metrology, and Vico. He donated $30 million and founded 13 chairs in Arizona. So he's one, and he will be the featured speaker. Mark your calendar. That will be 1 p.m. on the college level. He will also give a technology talk at our regular imaging science seminar time. That's 3:30. And April 8th, I'm going to give an opening talk on entrepreneurship and technical marketing. That will be follow on with the Sujatha's talk, focusing on two of the elements. So I hope you can all be engaged, motivated, and take the opportunity to build up your entrepreneurial network. So with this, I will give the stage to Sujatha.
So thank you for joining me. So as she said, we are looking to make this a fun talk. I want you to be engaged. It is interactive. Don't worry, it's not humiliating interactive. It should be fun interactive. My marketing team put this together, so they put my own picture there. And I'm like, oh. But let's talk about business. And now, most of us are scientists. I'm a scientist. I got involved in my first business actually when I was finishing my undergrad, entirely by coincidence. My roommate was a industrial designer, and she was involved in some project. And I went to the University of Michigan, so it was an interdisciplinary project between business school, the engineering school, some other random people that I didn't know, art, and they were working on something. And she came home one day and she was just frustrated. And she said, you know, I do all this industrial design and layout work, and I don't think it's going to work. I'm like, what's not going to work? She said, well, the laser scalpel we're working on. I said, why do you think that? I said, she says, I'm not convinced the laser's going to work.
So the microphone is not on.
Actually, I put it on here. Oh, you know what? I'll just be loud. Can you hear me? All right. Who needs a microphone when you're on loud now?
Can you hear her from the back?
Just a microphone, we heard it. The microphone started working.
Is it working?
Yeah.
It's not working when it's here, but it's working.
Yeah.
Oh, well then I'll use the microphone. Well, so anyway, she shows up at my door, and she's frustrated, and I said, well, what seems to be the issue? And I like lasers. And she shows it to me, and sure enough, they're trying to design whoever their engineer is, who's an idiot. They don't have a real engineer. They have like somebody who's not yet ready for that kind of stuff. And they're trying to design a laser, and I kind of laughed, and I said, no, why would you do that when Coherent sells this laser? You don't actually need to design a laser. You need to open a catalog and buy a laser. And we can talk about packaging it and cooling it afterwards. And with that, I joined the company. They said they made me the chief engineer for the brilliance of realizing that we didn't have to make it, we needed to buy it. And it was off to the races from there. We designed laser scalpels, we made pacemakers, and we sold the business with 3M. So serendipity, things just land on your doorstep sometimes, and it's so much fun. So what are the 4 things that make a business? The technology or the solution to a problem that you're trying to solve, an actual problem. And the first question I asked was, does the science work? Number 2, are you addressing a real market or a real problem? Or is it something you think is a problem? Number 3, do you have an advantage over what else is out there, or potentially out there? And finally, can you actually execute this? Is the team the correct team? These are the 4 pillars of a business. Now, this workshop is kind of focused on the team aspect, but I'm going to hit some of the other ones so you understand right up. Technology. Are you solving an actual problem? I mean, making the perfect square wheel is totally useless. It may be perfectly square, but nobody wants one. Number 2, verify your solution repeatedly. Do not be that person who had something growing in their petri dish and thought they had cold fusion. No, make sure it works. Make sure it works again and again. Check out your competition. Make sure that you have not been staring at your belly button and think that you're original when in fact it's out there and being sold or someone else is doing it. And also your competition can also be your collaborator. So get out there and know who's doing what. Make sure that you file your patents and have your intellectual property, and that your idea is defensible, that it can't be stolen from you. And keep good records. And I mean good records of everything. Good records of your science is always important. Your lab book should be neat and clean and organized, and your data in there. Your finances should be organized. Your marketing plans should be organized. Your accounting needs to be organized. In fact, just be organized. Like, nobody wants to walk into a business and it's smelly and dirty and disorganized in any way, whether it's your floor space or your accounting. Be neat, be organized. And this is really tough for me. I'm not by nature a neat person. I'm a walking tornado, but we'll get to how we handle that. The second thing we look at is the market. The market is a constantly changing dynamic landscape. And it is defined by the customer. You don't define the market. The person buying the stuff defines the market. So customer discovery, it's a journey. It's a continuous journey of learning what people like and what they want and helping them see the different options. So with that, talk to everybody. Talk to potential customers, talk to inventors, talk to your professors, talk to your family, talk to that weird person in the bus stop who you think is only talking to furniture. Well, maybe they have some insight. Actually, probably don't talk to them. They might be kind of scary. But talk to everybody. And develop specifications for your product based on what people need, not what you think they need, but what they actually need. So if they tell you, I want something that's this big, 4 inches by 3 inches, whatever this object is, they mean that big. They don't mean, you haven't convinced me yet that I need a 12-inch object. No, design to what your customer wants. And finally, don't stop listening. Sales, and in particular, and I'll get to that, is all about listening. People think it's all about pushing. It's not. It's about really, really hearing. And it's kind of one of those life lessons. As a scientist, I'm often distracted. Often, a lot of us are. We get distracted and our head goes somewhere else. And it's a very, very difficult thing. But when you are talking to somebody, when you're with somebody, you are there. And in that moment, that person is the most important person in your life, in that single moment. So right now, you guys are the most important thing in my life because I'm talking to you. When I leave this, it'll become my family. But in this moment, I'm engaged with you. That's how you find your market. And it shifts, right? So the market may be here one day, it's over here the next day. We need to be talking to people and listening. And finally, why is your solution to their problem? What's so special about it? What's the advantage? Does it have a better outcome? Meaning, if you're in optical science, is it more accurate? Does it give you a smoother fit? Is it, if it's a medical grade device, does it give you a better outcome? Do more people survive? Is the cycle time less? What is the specific outcome that your solution does better than anyone else's? What is its cost? Is it maybe less expensive than any other solution out there? Maybe it does the same thing someone else does. I had a business with I work for a large company, but I ran a particular business in mammography. And we did not have the best outcome, and we knew that. It was, our system was 92% accurate. Siemens is like 98% accurate. But what we had that Siemens didn't was an order of magnitude less expensive, which meant I could walk into South America, into China, into Northern Africa, and sell my stuff into hospitals that had nothing because they could not afford the $500,000 that Siemens is charging, but they could afford the $40,000 to $50,000 I was. So their accuracy rate went from 0 to 92%. No, they didn't get 98, but 92% is a whole lot better than 0. And so that was a cost advantage. And finally, is there something environmentally advantaged about it? I had another business and had other advantages, but it was a material science business. And one of the things that we said was you could process printed circuit boards by using our material and laser processing it. And why is that so important? It's because you don't dump electrolytic chemistry. You don't do electroplating. You don't have industrial sewering of really nasty toxic chemicals and heavy metals. And that's a big deal. And it's not just emotionally or conscience-wise a big deal. In this country, we lost the printed circuit board business. We lost it for two reasons. One was we lost it for cost, but we lost it because in this country we could not take the waste dumping, whereas other countries that were a little bit less environmentally conscious took those businesses. So what is the ideal way to solve the problem? Some people would say deregulate and take the dumpy business. I would say, how about coming up with a solution that doesn't destroy your environment and using that? If you can do that at a cost advantage position, then you've got two. If you can do that at a cost advantage position and do something better than everyone else, you've got three. Hitting all three is great. You need to hit at least one. If the only one you hit is cost, it's a dangerous place to play because cost advantages can be lost very, very easily. Markets fluctuate, new inventions come out, something else can. Solar industry is a good example. When the thin film based solar cells started coming out, ultimately it would have been cost advantaged. It was technologically advantaged, it was positioned to be cost advantaged. But when all of the silicon solar cells were dumped in North America, the market sank because in the immediate price pressure on those thin film that had not come up to its volume yet, they couldn't hit the price point, and those businesses went under before they ever had a chance to display their great advantages. So cost by itself is a good advantage, but it's a precarious one. And this is really important. You have to articulate that value proposition. You have to be able to tell somebody clearly and concisely why your product has advantage. You don't get a lot of time. When you're trying to convince somebody to buy something, you have to understand most people, particularly when they're writing a check, if it's an investor, they have the attention span of a gnat. So, I myself included. So you don't want to have an essay response to a question of why should I buy this. I've had more than one colleague tell me, well, I'm like a storyteller, I like to get to the punchline. Guess what? I've turned the channel. There's no time for a punchline. Articulate your value proposition. So I'm going to give you an example of one, and that was the material science company that I worked for that I helped found. We made nanomaterials. We made printable nano copper. And the idea behind it was you could directly print it onto whatever substrate, which could be flexible, unlike a standard circuit board, and we could do it at low cost. So if you ask me what am I doing, I would say, you need to buy our material because we give you the ability to print what you want, where you want it, on a flexible material with no hideous waste, which means that you're going to save money, you're going to have flexible electronics, and you're going to be good to your environment. That simple. It's not a deep technical statement, but it's enough to grasp somebody to say, yeah, I want to do that. So whatever it is, find those words that tell somebody quickly, and that's not a simple thing. You'll have to think about it. You'll have to run it past a few people. You'll confuse a lot of people. You'll have to adjust those words, but those words, they're very important. So we're going to go on to the thrust of this conversation. It's about the team. And so many investors will tell you, I'm betting on the jockey, not on the horse. And there's truth in that because you really need the right people to drive a business. And businesses change direction, and businesses change technology all the time. But if you have somebody driving in front who knows how to adapt and change and listen, your chances of success are so much better. So we do bet on the jockey. That said, I do actually want it to be a horse. If the jockey's riding a donkey, I am not betting on it. And what I mean by that is it has to be a good product. It has to be a good business. So when we talk about team leadership, there's a lot that goes into leading a team. If you are charging ahead, leading, and no one is following you, you're not leading, you're just running like a chicken. So you really need to make sure people are lining up behind you. And what does that leader do? That leader has to surround themselves with really good people. Surround yourself with really good people and be humble and respect that about other people. A-listers, they hire other A-listers. Look for people who are as good or better than you are. It's the B team that hires the C team because they want to look good. If you're the A team, go out there and hire the A+ people to be around you. I joke with my team, because my team is outstanding. I have this great group of people at NextCore that I work with, that my goal is that they are so good that I just don't have to come to work anymore. I can just stay in bed and watch TV all day and the business will just run. And that's actually the mentality you should have. You should hire the absolute best people you can get. As a team leader, the responsibility though lies with you. the buck stops with you. So if you are the CEO, you cannot point the finger at anyone else. No matter what goes wrong, it is your job to fix it. You have to recruit the right team, and you have to facilitate the team behavior. That's what a good leader does. They take responsibility, they recruit, they facilitate. So this is supposed to be, interrupt me. If anybody has questions or experiences or something they want to share, please go right ahead and interrupt. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking. All right, I'm gonna keep going, but don't hesitate. Raise a hand. If there's an incident or something you want to share, go right ahead. So let's talk about what it means to build a team. And I'm showing some really bad resolution pictures of famous teams here. Apollo 11 landed on the moon, outstanding team. Beatles, they were an outstanding team. The U.S. women's soccer team, this is a little dated picture, but an outstanding team. So what makes a team outstanding? The first thing you look at is you need to have a diversity of skills and thought. So you don't want a team which is all clones of the same person. You need to bring in different skills so you complement each other. You want to have technical strength, and this isn't a business. You need to have really strong technical people with different technical strengths. When I started working at Intrinsic, I was the chief operating officer. The very first hire we went out and did was a director of manufacturing. And she is an outstanding chemical engineer. And she and I are absolutely two polar opposite people. I get very excited, I'm creative, and I can make a lot of things work, and I'm running 90 miles an hour, and I'm totally positive nothing's ever gonna fail. And my counterpart was Janet. And Janet was meticulous, Janet was thorough. When things left her lab, they were perfect. She kind of approached every science project like Eeyore, like we're all gonna die, nothing's ever gonna work. And, but she'd work her way through it and measure it and make it perfect, and it would come out really good. So we had Tigger and Eeyore, and together we were a really good team. I actually think that's it, like you have Tigger, Eeyore, we needed an owl, and I'm really not sure what purpose Piglet served, but probably Piglet as well. But anyway, find those people that complement you. Business strength. When you're running a business, you do need somebody with business strength. So a lot of times we come out of academia. My first business came out of academia, but we had an MBA on our team. Really glad we did, because there's a lot of things you just don't know. And there are a lot of personality traits that we engineers and scientists have that are not always conducive to business. I am horribly outspoken, can't hide a single thought in my face, poker face, not at all. I would lose all my money if I played poker. I need somebody on the team who's a little bit better balanced to that kind of stuff. You need somebody who's got those skills. And it really helps to have somebody on your team who knows the market you're after. So if you think, okay, I'm gonna sell my special new device into apparel. It's gonna be sewn into shirts and sweaters and whatever. It's good to have somebody on your team who has worked in the apparel industry and knows who to call and who are the players and because it's a lot of ground leg up work if you don't know your industry, and sometimes you're very terribly mistaken about what you're gonna do. Different personalities. Back to my friend Janet. She and I are totally different personalities, but you need that. You need somebody who's calm when someone is hyper, and you need someone who's excited when someone drags. You need to balance those personalities so that you can, I'm not saying to the balance to the point that you stall. That goes back to where the CEO has to facilitate. You have different personalities to get different ideas out there, different ways of working, but there has to be somebody who's like, okay, we're done, we're gonna move on to the next topic. That's the CEO's job. But you do need those different personalities. And I'm back to someone who knows your market. It's really hard to sell if you don't know your clients. It's hard to even learn your clients if you don't know who to ask. So get somebody who knows the market you think you're after, even if they're just helping on the side. While you have all of these diversities of skills and thought, you also need singleness of purpose. You want to have common values. I used to think when I was younger that I could work with anybody. It's just business. I'm going to go home. It'll be fine. My friends are at home. My work is at work. And there's some truth in that. But you cannot work with people you don't respect. You have to have common values. So I told you the story. One of my issues, I had a company in which I ended up leaving, and it was because I did not share common values with the CEO. We'd invented a material, and we were approached by a cigarette company out of China asking to use it to package their cigarettes to make it more attractive and light up and get young people interested. And I said, no, I'd not work my life as a scientist to jeopardize and hurt the welfare of children. Why would I do that? And our CEO disagreed. He's like, people make their own decisions. They can buy the cigarette or not. It's just packaging. We can sell to packaging people. And we went back and forth, and I really felt that personally I couldn't do it. I could not work for a company where my inventions and my science is going to go to ultimately make people very ill. And so I stepped away. We could not work together. We did not have common values. And I'm not saying I'm right or he's wrong and anything like that. I'm just saying he and I are not on the same page. And that's common values. There's also aligned business goals. If you start a business and one of you is building a lifestyle business and you want to spend 30 years and this is going to be your legacy, you're going to do this and you're going to grow this business and die and leave it to your children, that's a family business. But if the other person on the board is trying to raise a business and then sell it to a corporate strategic or something, I'm going to take VC money, I'm going to exit at $100 million, you've got very different aligned business goals. That doesn't mean someone's good or someone's bad, but the way you operate your business is different. Somebody doing family business cannot take VC money because the VCs can't get their money back and they're going to put pressure on you to exit when you don't want to. Whereas if you are looking to get that exit, you probably do need some VCs. There's someone out there who can help you shop your business. So it's a very different direction the company takes. So make sure that when you set up your business, you and your co-founders, you're thinking the same thing. Like, if you're not, you're going to pull your business in two different directions. Company culture. So your company culture is defined by your leadership team. When you start a business, you have a culture, you have a way of life that you're imparting down to your team. You have values, and they could be, family first values. Everybody go home and feed your children. Or they may not be family first. They might be, we're going to work like maniacs so we can exit this business at $100 million next week. You have to have a common mission. You're trying to build the same thing. You have to have operational understanding of how you're going to run. And you need to switch up your leadership team periodically. Every company, there are different types of CEOs. So there's CEOs for growth, there's CEOs for exit, there's CEOs for manufacturing, scaling. So you need to switch out your leadership team. And I talk about whatever you are, make sure your whole team is that. So here we have superheroes, and they have a common goal of saving the universe. We have here master villains. They are out to destroy the planet. Whatever you do, you don't want Superman over here. He's going to make your whole destruction of the planet very, very inefficient. And if you put the Joker on the superheroes team, he's going to cause a lot of sabotage. So the point really is, if you're going to be a villain, really be a villain. Embrace it. Surround yourself with other rotten villains, and just be that. If you're going to be a superhero, own that. Bring yourself around a bunch of superheroes. And I have dogs playing poker because they all have kind of a similar attitude towards life. But whatever it is that you are, what that culture is, how you feel about business and people, it's a pervasive thing from the top down. If you create an inclusive and good, happy culture, you will have inclusive, good, happy employees. If you create supervillains, you will have supervillains for employees. It may have its advantages, disadvantages. So have a singleness of purpose, the goals of your business, your ethics, and a commitment to do this together. So that's the company culture. And one other thing about company culture is articulate it. We all have employment manuals. First of all, it's in New York State regulation. You must have an employment manual. But that employment manual does define your company culture in a lot of ways. It tells you about maternity leave. It tells you about sick leave. It tells you about work hours and work practices. But a lot of those values are reflected in that manual. So when you have that manual and you hire people, they understand exactly what they're walking into. So one of the larger companies in this town, and I think they've just stepped away from this, used to have a rule that women had to wear pantyhose when they're wearing a dress. For the young women in this audience, who the heck does that? That's circa 1977. Somebody put that in the employment manual. But for a long, it was enforced until fairly recently. Somebody had to go in there and say, the company culture is demeaning and just plain stupid. It's cold here. We like to wear pants. But those are the things that come out in that manual. So we are going to have a discussion, company culture discussion. Goals of the business, is it profitability, and what is a profitability goal? Is it exit or lifestyle? Ethics, are you seeking greater good or greater science? Regions, Where are you gonna do your business? What country? How do you feel about cigarettes and smoking? And operations, how do you feel about family leave? How do you feel about work from home? Can you bring your dog to work? And what's your vacation policy? So I bring this up as a discussion. I want you to think about yourself for just a minute. And think about what's important. You know, this obviously you're not necessarily here starting a business. Think about what's important to you. And we're gonna form little groups. And it doesn't, with pretend businesses, which will come back to haunt you in a little bit. So I'm gonna divide this audience into 3 or 4 groups. And I want you guys to decide for yourself what your goals of your business are. Answer some of these questions. The cigarette one's a story I told you. Is greater good or greater science? What's more important to you? How's business done? Because you know, every place has different rules. Like if you do business in certain countries, bribes are anticipated and accepted. In some places, it's frowned upon and illegal. Some places, you know, it's 9 to 5. Some places it's 10 to 7. So it's very much regionally dependent. And you know, how do you feel about some of these things? What's your family leave policy? Is it just the state, it says FMLA in 12 weeks? Or is it, do you pay for it? Do men get the same benefits as women? Those kinds of things, like, think about it. How do you feel about it? So let's divide into groups. We're gonna do 3 groups. From this young lady this way, you're one group. From this young lady up to this gentleman here with the blue shirt and the tan jacket, in that group, you're one group. And then everybody else, you're in one group. So I'm gonna come back to you in 3 minutes and tell me a little bit about your company culture and who you are. And again, have fun with it. You can make stuff up if you want to.
Are they going to discuss all 3 subjects, or they choose one subject?
No, discuss all 3. But you only have 3 minutes, so just have fun with it. 1 minute per subject.
Just a scope. What do you think? Okay, will you walk most of the 8 hours a day?
Yeah. Do we care about how much money we make? I think we're just trying to sell it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just make it for all life.
No. We are going to
To the 2 gentlemen in the back, you should join this group here.
Maybe that's the whole thing. Join our company, everybody's equal split with the soul. We just have to sell it for a lot of money. The company doesn't actually have to give people.
So I was meeting with Tom Grant, and I said, you said something, so that was
Just think about it. Have you worked for a company all your life? Oh, just like.
We can talk about dogs. Dogs are loud.
I'm in the well, how do you make sure they don't?
I didn't know that was yeah, no, you can bring dogs to work. I guess that was we had this dog in our office. Our the director said trained his dogs. It was passionate dog. Just like spray. Sat like
so Anita does bring his dog sometimes. He's
really? The dog came around.
Only 5%
what is it? What can
What means that what you're making is going to make something.
In any case, yeah, I think it's just calling back to
All right, so it's been about 3 minutes, and I'm going to start here with Team Stage Right.
Our company is everybody has fun.
So, Team Stage Right, tell me what the goal of your business is, describe your ethics and some of your operational policies.
So we have a representative. Great.
We have mic? I don't have a mic. Oh, yeah, you do. Oh, I can turn it on. This works.
Whether or not you come to work doesn't matter.
All right, to whoever is your representative, just yell. Yeah, come on up here. Talk into that mic.
Introduce yourself first.
Okay, so I'm Christian. I represent Stage Right, I guess. So in terms of our general company ideas, we wanted to go for goals. We want to cater more towards lifestyle, as is a typical trend in a lot of companies now, where they don't sell a product, they sell more of like, you know, here's people doing things that the company likes to convey, and they happen to be using a product rather than just straight up advertising. Like, here's some specs. You want to show people actually interacting with the future thing that you want them to buy. In terms of ethics and overall, like what you look for in a person, we more state that it's important to have good groups to work with, rather than, you know, just strict guidelines, because a lot of it is how well do personalities mesh within companies, and how do people work together. Like, can you blend the right level of productivity with the right level of general, like, happiness, I suppose. And a lot of companies are also trying to do that, where they want to become part of your life rather than like a chore to go to every day. So in that case, we would be more okay with like a bit more flexibility if it means that in the end your employee is happier and more productive. So there's some sacrifices there which I think are worth it. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. That's the culture of your company. Team center stage. Somebody come up here and tell us about your team. Or you can just stand up there and talk really loudly.
We kind of had a sort of a lighthearted discussion. There's been a lot of like scams in the media recently, like Theranos and WeWork and some of these companies that have like super high valuations, but turn out to not be worth a whole lot. So we were kind of joking that we'd like to cash in on that and hopefully present a professional enough image to get a super high valuation and then cash out and retire early. That was our plan.
You know, it's worked for some.
Right.
All right, so in terms of ethics, you really
Don't have any.
don't have any.
How many people are you representing?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So you are embracing the supervillain model. I can respect that. So as long as you own what you are, it's always good. So, any operational policies? Are people allowed to go home? Are they held prisoner? Can they bring their dog to work?
Yeah, we
cat
have
to
pretty
work?
generous policies.
They don't really have to show up even, really, right?
Well, it's important when the investors show up, though, to be well dressed.
Do you have like rules like you have to shower once in a while? We don't want any smelly people in.
Just when the investors are there.
Okay. Excellent. So you know who you are, and that's great. So team stage left. Where are you on this? Wow.
Yeah, so we end up in an argument about what the goals of the business should be. So profitability is indeed an important thing, but then what should be the company culture to have that profitability? Should we work like 20 hours for that? I mean, what should be the way to have that profitability? So we ended up discussing about how the company has to be profitable. I mean, that's okay, but.
I should have explained that better. I should have said, what's your path to profitability? Are you gonna take a long time or take a short time? Do you wanna make huge money and get out? Do you wanna make small amounts of money for long periods of time?
Yeah, so kind of touched on that in a way that if we are thinking of a company that we want to earn a lot and then sell it away, then we have to work really hard to reach to that point. That hampers the lifestyle. So how should the culture be that it's both of the points are met? So we ended up discussing only goals, ethics. I don't know. We just reached to the point that why should the point be greater good or greater science? Why can't it be greater science for greater good? I mean, the goal of the company. So that was our point for the ethics. And operationally, agree to all 4 points. They should be equally weighted for all the 4 points. It should be there in the company.
And that's, it's an interesting, people think it's an easy discussion, but you have a very good point there. I've worked for businesses where the goal was to exit, and I have worked so hard, and I worked so many hours. I really think one really sad telling story is when my daughter, when she was in nursery school, I was working for a startup, and I dropped her off. She made they all made like little art projects out of whatever, construction paper. She made an earbud like Mom's, because Mom was always had her earbud on her and was taking phone calls everywhere she went. So it was a little telling about how much time I had to spend to make that business profitable, and I'm not even sure it was worth it. Greater good or greater science, you're right, it can be greater science for greater good, but sometimes it really is a trade-off. And I use the mammal business as a classic one, where I had 92% accuracy. That is not the greater science. But I felt the greater good was getting something adequate in the hands of people who had nothing. Rather than seeking the best science, I sought the best outcome. It was, everybody's got to make a choice as to what they're trying to achieve. Okay, so that was a fun discussion. So we're going to talk about something that we're going to move to our next little activity. Recruit and diversify. When I say recruit, you have to go out there and find diverse skills and diverse personalities. You really do. Recruit for diversity. Do not get clones of yourself. And when I say, you should have men and women and people of different race and different beliefs, it's actually terribly important for the success of your business. And the reason I say that is because if you pick everybody is exactly the same, you're not representing a wide enough market. You're only representing this much. It's not good business sense to not listen to not have diversity. So moral imperatives aside, it's good business to have diversity. You get better market understanding, you get better market access. You're probably going to be more successful if you listen and work outside the realm of just this little realm that you're comfortable with. And I mean that about skills and personality too. I'm going to talk a little bit about unconscious bias. It's a very popular thing. People will say, you should trust your gut when you're hiring. I really kind of hate that phrase, because that phrase, trust your gut, opens the door to incredible amounts of prejudice, because we are most comfortable with that which is most like ourselves. So if we're constantly trusting our gut, and I was hiring, we would have a business of small Indian women and no one else, because that's what I am, and therefore that must be what I'm comfortable with. And how fair is that? Some may argue that it's very fair. My mother, who's 5'2", would be like, yeah. But that's not right. It's not right, and it probably would be cutting off huge amounts of the market. So instead of saying trust your gut, I ask you, when you don't feel good about something, or something's not hitting you the right way, why is that? Take the time to do that self-reflection and understand for yourself why that person is rubbing you the wrong way. And there may be a really legitimate reason. I had a case recently where I was interviewing somebody for a job in another company, and I just didn't feel good, and I didn't feel good, and I had to think about it, like, why is it that do they remind me of somebody that I knew, and is that fair? Is it just something idiotic? And it turned out that it was because he could not make eye contact when I was asking him a question. And to me, that was a sign of shiftiness. But it may not be, right? What if he had a vision problem? What if the sun was in his eyes? So I had to take a big step back and say, is he about to lose this job offer because I don't like the way he makes eye contact with me? And is that right? So when I recruit, I'm very analytical. Yes, I do care about personalities. Yes, you do need to get along with the rest of the team. That is important. But I do sit down and I'm very analytical about what are the skills we're looking for, what is their work experience. Don't hire by gut. if your gut is bothering you, listen to it, try to understand why. But don't swing from the hip on that, because that is how we make mistakes, and that is how we mistreat people who are different from us, and we don't want to do that. It's not good business. So we're gonna do an exercise in team building. We have our same teams, and we're gonna break into groups, and you're gonna pick a famous team, and it can be anything. It can be zoo animals, it can be the Avengers, it can be the Disney princesses. I had somebody pick the G7 Summit, and I'm like, oh, that's gonna be dysfunctional. And then I had people who picked, you know, the apostles. Find something that your team all knows. Assign roles from that. So, you know, suppose you pick the Disney princesses. You know, I'm really a big fan of Mulan because I really liked her martial arts skills and her aggressive personalities. I could see myself being Mulan. Whereas, you know, some of the others didn't play to my strengths, but maybe played to someone else's strength. Maybe you have a Princess Jasmine who really is very sharp and very able to see through things, and she, you know, I don't know. Develop yourself and figure out what your personalities are, assign roles, and tell me what those characteristics are. I'm going to use an example of a pretty famous team here, the Beatles. I always thought John was good at strategic planning and trying to figure out where the team should be headed. Paul could play anything. I mean, he could play the drums, he could play the guitar, he could play absolutely anything, sing anything. He was clearly the chief operating officer. George had a creative vision. He was like that chief scientist, creative guy. Ringo kept the peace. He was HR. He kept these guys from fighting as much as he possibly could. So he clearly was the HR guy. So go out there, pick a team. You've got 5 minutes. Actually, make it 3 because I want to get through the rest of this. And then tell me about your team. So you guys already have broken up into groups. Find your team.
From a team.
Yeah.
Everyone need to find out what we just said.
Speaking of Muppets.
I don't. Something else, because don't culture.
I think everybody knows.
Friends, you know,
Actually,
friends.
don't. That's okay. I'm in a minority.
What's that?
What business are you in? How about friends? Everybody puts friends.
Generic team, a baseball team or soccer team.
Sorry?
The nuclear power plant.
Yes, Simpson.
So Mr. Burns has got the financial resources.
You can be that guy from the store.
There's, who's on the Simpsons? Who's Bart? Homer?
Yeah.
What's the wife's name? Marge? Mr. Burns? Krusty.
So where's Bart?
He's the central figure of the Simpsons, right? He's like the star character that.
So he's the most creative? No.
I did.
So you're quite a strategic person.
I'd like to think I am.
You can be the strategic
What was this for?
Yeah. You can be John.
Yes.
What is it? Yeah, that's good. I sounded your praise, but it's not nice. So, Bart,
He's
you can,
in charge of
what is that?
He's kind of like the false.
No, like, yes, it's just a really dysfunctional company. Like the great.
We have to have like a good team.
Yeah, effective team.
Effective team, yes, that's a
Let's say
skill.
effective team.
Can we imagine team out of the biggest billionaires like Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg, and you can be a Elon Musk. They make fun. Football, that's like Bill Gates, like what about you?
Billionaire CEOs.
You have
They have their personality types,
Yeah.
like Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg.
The Shark Tank characters.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also true.
Shark Tank.
You know who's on the Shark Tank?
Think about these things. If you're having trouble coming up with a team, I suggest things like zoo animals. Everybody's been to the zoo, pick an animal.
Okay, let's do animals.
Because sometimes it's hard finding.
What do
I don't
you
think they need
I think we just stick.
You say?
I've already talked about it already.
Yeah, yeah. So how we are need to assign roles? Roles. Okay.
However you want to look at it.
I want to okay, Marsh was like, you know, like, no, she took care of it.
Okay, so you have about 1:30 left, so you should have identified a team. Each of you pick a character.
Kept everything together.
Like all the
There's
logistics,
nothing would happen.
supplies, you know, like. And Braze was sorry.
But there's diversity there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dog. I think Bart, you know who was? He was
Ralph was
Mark.
actually the kid that like really thought it was
Yeah, but Bart, I think he was Mark because he kind of like why we were twice. Yeah. And the director of the school. Yeah.
Or no, superintendent John.
I don't know.
Okay, we gotta wrap this activity up, so I'm going to start this time. Stage left. You can stay where you are. Tell me, what team are you? And tell me about some of the players on your team.
We are basically cast from Harry Potter series.
Excellent.
And we choose Hermione to be our CEO because she had the bag of things which she could pull out and
She was pretty impressive.
yeah. And Dumbledore could be the person who handles all the who keeps peace. What were the other two things? And maybe Ronald Weasley could be HR because I don't know why.
And he takes people around, like everyone around.
Yeah, CTO is maybe Harry.
Do any of you personally identify with any of the characters? Like someone like, I am Hagrid. I know I'm Hagrid.
I don't know.
Okay. Team center stage. What is your team? And somebody's gonna have to come get me back into this because I don't have any passwords. It's not recognizing me. Who are you?
So we still were The Simpsons.
Excellent. And
And we just analyzed each character individually and how they kind of made things happen. How Bart was he was the center character and the creative one and just made lots of chaos. Marge kind of kept everything together, right?
Yep.
Maybe like a CFO, right? Homer was tried to be kind of like a CEO, thought he was like in charge, but he really just didn't do anything, right?
True. There are a lot of
then we-
CEOs out there that are just like that.
Then we had the brains, Lisa and Milhouse, and so all together they kind of functioned.
Excellent. They're disturbingly like a cleaner version of the Family Guy too, which is a whole other, probably inappropriate. All right, stage right. Who are you?
We were the Avengers.
Excellent.
Yes, going down the line, we assigned roles to each other. Over here we had Thor, who was, what did we say? We had ideas guy.
And that big hammer.
Creative lead. And then we've got Captain America. I don't remember what we said for that.
Captain America's totally charming. He really is. He's sales, marketing. He's yeah.
Yeah. And then we had Rocket directing from.
Oh, yeah.
Little Terry.
Little devious.
Goes out and gets things done. Then we have Iron Man, organized, puts everything together. Has the tower.
Excellent. I was like the Avengers. So anybody here feel left out and want to tell me who they are and what team they belong to? This is your chance to. Okay. Those are some very functional teams. And their purposes were different, like Harry Potter's team really had to get rid of Voldemort. The Simpsons had to survive and entertain us. And the Avengers have to save the world regularly. So responsibility, this goes back to what I was saying before. Buck stops here when you're CEO, when you're forming a company. Your job is to motivate this team, if you're the CEO, and to help them reach consensus. Because you've got to have enough dissonance to get different ideas on the floor, but you also got to move along. You can't be paralyzed. The CEO's job is to facilitate that, to motivate, and to reach consensus. Because the buck stops here. There's no one to blame except for yourself.
Can I ask a question about that though? When you're working with teams, I think oftentimes the innovator assumes the role of CEO, but they don't always have the skill set.
Nope.
How do you coach that?
I've had this conversation, I've had to have it harshly, I've had to have it gently. Like, you are really good at creating, but the skill set that this organization needs right now is somebody who can put together a financial plan and get out and sell this business, and that isn't your strength. Play to your strength. And what I usually tell people like that, because they get hurt, that's my business, I point out that they're still the founder and they still control the company. It is their job to help hire that CEO. The CEO is like a hired gun. I've been that hired gun, and I get that. But part of being a grown-up is knowing what you really, really excel at. And part of my being an investor, I'm actually having this harsh discussion with the company right now, the CEO is not able to do the job he needs to. He's running out of cash. He's asking me for money, and at the same time, he's not listening when I tell him, I know where you're headed. So I'm going to have to do the hard thing. I'm going to tell him, I will loan you the money to keep your business afloat as long as you step aside and you bring in a CEO. Hard conversation, but I'm going to do it for his good as well, because otherwise everybody loses their jobs. That's where the board has to step in and make the right decision and say, you're in over your head. And we're doing this as much for you as we are for the entire company. A lot of CTOs are founders. A lot of people lose their companies because they're not able to recognize that. Facilitate. How do you facilitate? Balance the roles and take turns being the same person. You have to learn how to laugh also. Take time to laugh. Everybody has 4 basic needs. Everybody, when they come to a company, wants to feel useful. They want to have a future, so they don't want to feel stuck. They want to be respected, and they want to be heard. And you have to keep that in mind. Those are 4 basic needs of human nature. That when you are leading and you have people, make them feel useful. Let them see their future. Respect them and listen. And your job as a CEO is to facilitate these conversations, to enable your team and to help resolve conflict. And it's a lot of work and it is very stressful. And sometimes you need to go outside and get a little extra help, even a therapist. But if you can't do that, you're not going to have a functional team. And sometimes it gets so bad you can't do that. You have to switch someone out. Someone is just a roadblock. They're not working with the team and you're not getting where you need to go. And it's time to replace them. So I think this is our last actual exercise, if we have time for it. It is same groups. So this is how it is. You have intergalactic invaders are approaching. They plan to turn our planet into a rustic vacation resort for their home planet. And by obliterating all modern technology. So it's kind of going to be they're going to turn us into like an Amish vacation. Humankind will become their serfs and servants. You have 5 minutes to devise a plan to thwart this problem. So your team, we've got Harry Potter guys over here, we've got the Simpsons, and we've got the Avengers. Figure out what the roles are, what the strategy you're going to take, and what the outcome you want is as you approach your intergalactic invaders. You have, actually, because we're almost running out of time, 5 minutes, and get up and tell me what you got. Go.
No, we can talk to them. We can show them, like how it's demos of that it's responsibility for plan for vacations. Yeah, like where the future
This might have been wonderful.
we just go and so all these places like Pleasant Place and show them.
And then make sure.
We'll see if they can.
And also when people are lazy, they could be able to show them letters. Like this and go.
And we'll put them on loan.
No, wait.
Homework is the best specification. Not loan is what it is that come.
Yeah, he will keep them in sort of. Oh, no, we will not take care of them. All their plans, their lives, why we need 5 minutes,
All right, in the interest of getting everybody to where they need to go, I'm going to ask you, center stage, you're up first. Tell us.
Okay.
What is your goal? How are you going to save the planet from becoming slaves to somebody's intergalactic vacation, rustic vacation?
Our idea was to prove to the aliens, that the planet has too much environmental damage. And people are too fragile to keep them as servants, so it would be too expensive, to maintain the servants because they need hospital and they need care, and it's too hard to, to clean the planet from the base. So they would abandon this idea.
So you're going with the unpalatable vacation.
We're going to give them Homer on loan as a servant.
Yeah, you're going to send them over as a servant. You're going to take him to that nuclear dump place where he works.
Exactly.
Really want where you want to. Good idea. Nice plan, Group Simpson. So which group here wants to go next and tell us how they're going to serve the planet, save the planet?
Sure.
Go ahead.
We had a bunch of ideas. One of them was very similar to yours, where we just said this planet is uninhabitable. You probably don't want to live here. What's our next idea after that? Because we're the Avengers, we decided that they're probably from a world where they don't know what the Avengers are. So we're just going to tell them that we have powers like Thanos, and that we can snap and we can just make them go away. and we're just gonna assume that they're not gonna call their bluff on that.
You know, you may have more you don't know what their powers are, they may not have any, so you might be able to take them. So you're going with the we're gonna fight them approach. We're gonna hopefully bluff them into not fighting, but you may have to fight them.
Yeah.
And your outcome is to drive them away out of fear and blood loss.
Yes.
A plan that is embraced by many and worked for many too. Excellent. Okay, Team Harry Potter, what is your plan? You have a different skill set than that. Harry Potter's got some magic and stuff.
Yeah, so we decided that we'll do some magic and open a wormhole, go back in time, kill the source, come back. Then this way there's no war. She suggested that we should go back and study them, come back and
Okay,
then.
Hermione.
Yeah, I was just like, why do we have to be destructive? So okay, use the wormhole, go back, study their weakness and strength, and then come in present and threaten them with their weaknesses so that they go away.
That's a good plan. I'm surprised Hermione didn't say, let's go to the library. Look it up. Excellent. So, I mean, everybody has, the point is, there's many different ways to get there. I've had people say we're going to straight out fight them. I've heard uninhabitable planet before. This is the first time I've heard wormhole. I've heard somebody go and say, you know, let's go a different approach. Let's pick out areas and go rustic and provide them the service they want, but then charge them lots of money. Otherwise, they end up in an uninhabitable area. So we're going to turn this into a profitable adventure, visiting our rustic planet. We'll just pick like Antarctica and do that. So we're out of time. So I want to tell you a little bit about Illuminate. We fund entrepreneurs. We ask you to come with a working prototype. We're in optics, photonics, and imaging. And we open up our process sometime in spring, and we take applicants through summer. And in fall, we decide to pick 10 companies. And we give each company $100,000 initial investment, 6 months worth of coaching and training, and then we do follow-on investments up to $1 million into some of the companies. Our goal is to help you grow. So if you have that brilliant idea, if you've got that great idea, come talk to me. We can come help you. There are many ways to grow your idea. You need to have, it's like the lottery, $1 in a drain. You've got to have an idea, and you got to have a passion to execute it. Because entrepreneurship is no easy road. It is a hard road, I won't lie to you. There might be a wonderful exit at the end, but there's a lot of years of pain and struggle, and you better have a sense of humor. But if you can do that, and if you found your passion, then follow it, because there's nothing beats that feeling when you're doing what you love. So we are NextCorp, NEXTCORPS.org. We're funded, and the program is called Illuminate. If you want to look us up, it's Illuminate, LUMINATE.org. And look us up. See if we're interesting to you. The other thing that we have is a lot of startups looking for co-ops, interns, and employment. Hop on that site, you might see some jobs that look somewhat interesting to you. Or just look up the companies and send me an email. She has my email address, and say, hey, I'm really interested in that technology or that company. We do internships, we do co-ops, we do senior projects, we do all kinds of fun stuff. And all my teams are understaffed and would appreciate some student assistance. So, Illuminate.org, look us up. Thanks.
Interactive talk. They have about 30 companies.
30 companies in the portfolio right now.
In the optics, photonics, imaging space, and also help you to build up your network. I think today is the first opportunity for you actually. It's like a play, but it's not a play. Everything has a grand concept about business strategy. You can bluff, you can be brave, you can go back to time. So there's a term to frame this at a later talk. And there's how do you get money, and Greg is right here. And one day you're ready to go out to fund your business, to seek for funding. He will be a great advisor. You want to say a few words to our students?
Sure, and yeah, I'd be happy to come back and do a full talk, but RIT has a venture fund that's open to alumni, and so any alum that starts a business is eligible, but as Sujatha mentioned, it's hard, right? You have to have an idea, a business, an actual business, and but if it looks like something that can be successful in a high growth area, then we'd absolutely be interested in supporting the alumni as they move their projects forward.
Thank you. And I think the first thing probably you take some opportunity to know your teammates in a different setting, right? So with imagination, with a goal, with a strategy, with a strength, and you need this type of setting to move forward, either with your enterprise in a big corporation or with an entrepreneur environment. So we're going to have a coffee and cookie time, so you have more time to ask questions to Sujatha. Let's give her another round of applause.